My neighbor ruined our lives for 15 years. In the end, she lost her house and her son. I used to think having a bad neighbor meant dealing with loud music, a dog that wouldn't stop barking, or someone parking in your driveway. I would have taken any of those. Our neighbor spent 15 years making our lives miserable. And the strangest part is that, for the first few years, I kept telling myself she was just difficult. I was wrong. Her name was Linda. She moved in next door about 6 months after we bought our house. At first, she seemed completely normal. She was probably in her late 40s, lived alone, and had a son who was around 16 at the time. She introduced herself over the fence one Saturday morning. We talked for maybe 10 minutes. She seemed friendly enough. Then, about 3 weeks later, she knocked on our door. She told me our son had kicked a football into her garden. I apologized. He was 12. It happens. I offered to replace whatever had been damaged. She said nothing was damaged. She just wanted us to teach him some respect. Fine. We did. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. The next complaint was about our driveway. Then our bins. Then the tree at the back of our garden. Then our outdoor lights. Then she complained that our dog was looking through her kitchen window. That one actually made me laugh. I told her, "The dog can't control where he looks." She didn't find it funny. After that, things changed. She started documenting everything. Photos of our bins, photos of our car, photos of our garden, photos of our children playing outside. She would stand behind her upstairs window with her phone pointed at us. The first time I noticed it, I asked her what she was doing. She closed the curtain. I thought that was creepy. I didn't realize how much worse it would get. About a year later, we received a letter from the council. Someone had complained about us. Apparently, our garden shed was too close to the boundary. We checked. It wasn't. The council inspector came out, measured everything, and left. The complaint was dismissed. 3 months later, another one came. This time, it was about noise. We had people over for my wife's birthday. There were maybe 10 people. We finished around 10:30. Apparently, that was enough for Linda to file a formal complaint. Then another. And another. Eventually, the council stopped taking them seriously. But Linda didn't stop. She found other ways. One morning, I discovered someone had moved our wheelie bin directly in front of our garage. I moved it back. The next morning, it was there again. I installed a small camera facing our driveway. 3 days later, I caught Linda moving it. I went next door. She denied it. I showed her the footage. She looked at the camera and said, "That doesn't prove anything." I asked, "Then why were you standing there?" She slammed her door. The worst part was how slowly it happened. There wasn't one huge incident. It was hundreds of little ones. A complaint here, an argument there, a note through the letterbox, a phone call, a confrontation over the fence. She made everything exhausting. My wife wanted to move. I didn't. We loved the house. Our kids had grown up there. We had spent years fixing it up. I told my wife, she'll get bored eventually. She didn't. Then, about 6 years after Linda moved in, something happened that changed the whole neighborhood. Her son Ryan was now in his early 20s. He knocked on our door one evening. I knew him reasonably well. He'd grown up next door. He looked embarrassed. He said, "Can I ask you something?" I invited him inside. He stood there for a few seconds before saying, "Does my mom actually hate you?" I didn't know what to say. "Why would you ask that?" He looked at the floor. "Because she keeps telling me you people are trying to ruin her life." That was the first time I realized Linda wasn't just fighting with us. She had been telling her son a completely different version of everything. According to her, we'd harassed her. We'd damaged her property. We'd threatened her. We'd apparently been trying to get her removed from the neighborhood. None of it was true. Ryan apologized for her. I told him it wasn't his fault. Then he asked me something I'll never forget. "Do you have any proof she's been doing this?" I said yes. I had years of council letters, camera footage, messages, dates, everything. Ryan nodded. Then he said, "Keep it." I asked why. He looked genuinely worried. And before he left, he told me something I had never heard before. His mother wasn't just having problems with us. She was having problems with someone else too. And apparently, that person had finally decided to fight back. The person Ryan was talking about was his father. I knew Linda's husband had been gone for years, but I'd never really asked what happened. Ryan told me his parents had separated when he was about 17. His father had moved out. Linda had told everyone it was because he'd abandoned them. Ryan had believed that for years. Until recently. Apparently, his father had started keeping copies of everything too. Letters, bank records, messages, police reports, and a lot of complaints Linda had made about other people. Not just us. Apparently, we'd been one of at least 4 families she'd had serious disputes with over the years. That surprised me. I thought we were unlucky. Turns out we weren't special. She had a pattern. Ryan didn't tell me everything that night. He just said, "My dad's coming back." To the house? No. He shook his head. "He's hiring a solicitor." I asked why. Ryan looked at me. "Because my mom has been lying about the house." That got my attention. "What do you mean?" He explained that the house technically belonged to both of his parents. Linda had been telling people for years that her husband had given up his share when he left. Apparently he hadn't. There was a legal dispute over it. And Linda had been trying to sell the house without telling him. Ryan had found out. That was why he'd come to us. He wanted copies of anything that showed what she'd been doing. I gave him everything I had. Not because I wanted to get Linda into trouble. At that point, I just wanted the harassment to stop. A few weeks later, things got very quiet. Too quiet. No complaints. No notes. No shouting over the fence. No bins being moved. Linda stopped looking at us. I thought we'd finally won. Then one afternoon, 2 cars pulled up outside her house. One belonged to her ex-husband. The other was a solicitor's car. Linda came outside. She saw them and immediately started screaming. We couldn't hear every word through the windows, but we could tell it was serious. Her ex-husband stayed calm. The solicitor handed her some papers. Linda ripped them. He gave her another copy. She ripped those too. Then she went inside and slammed the door. That night, Ryan knocked on ours again. He looked exhausted. He said, "My dad filed for his share of the house." I asked, "Does that mean she's going to have to sell it?" "Probably." Then he added, "There's more." Apparently, Linda had been using the house as security for several loans. Loans her husband knew nothing about. She had also been telling people that she was the sole owner. Her ex-husband had enough evidence to challenge that. But the bigger problem was what she'd done with the money. She had apparently borrowed against the property to pay for legal disputes, repairs, and other things she'd convinced herself were necessary. Some of those legal disputes were against neighbors, including us. She had spent thousands fighting people who hadn't actually done anything to her. I remember sitting there thinking, she had spent years making everyone's lives miserable, and she'd been paying for it herself. A few months later, we got another letter. This one wasn't from the council. It was from a solicitor. Linda was accusing us of defamation. Apparently, she'd heard we'd told people she was harassing us. We hadn't. But we had records. We sent everything to our own solicitor. The case went nowhere. The accusation was dismissed. And then, something unexpected happened. Her son testified. Ryan told the solicitor that his mother had been obsessively documenting our family for years. He provided copies of messages she'd sent him. Some of them were unbelievable. She'd told him not to speak to us. She'd told him we were dangerous. She'd even told him that if he ever became friendly with our children, he'd be betraying her. That was when I finally understood why he'd looked so uncomfortable all those years. He'd been trapped in the middle. Ryan moved out. Not because we asked him to. He got his own place. He told his mother he needed some distance. She apparently blamed us for that too. One evening, she stood outside our house screaming that we'd stolen her son. I didn't respond. I called the police. They came. They spoke to her. And for the first time in 15 years, Linda stopped treating us like we were the ones who had to tolerate everything. There were consequences now. The house eventually went on the market. Linda fought it. Her ex-husband had the legal right to force the sale because of the ownership dispute. She couldn't stop it. The house sold several months later. Linda had to move. And, honestly, I thought that would be the end. It wasn't. Because when Ryan came to say goodbye, he told us something that made me see the whole situation differently. He said, "My mom thinks losing the house is the worst thing that's happened to her." He paused. "It's not." I asked him what he meant. He looked toward her empty driveway. "She lost me years ago." That hit harder than I expected. Because we'd spent 15 years thinking Linda was the person destroying our peace. But the truth was, she'd been destroying her own life at the same time. And we'd only been close enough to see it. We thought we'd finally be free. Then 3 days after Linda moved out, a letter arrived at our house. It wasn't from her. It wasn't from the council. It wasn't from a solicitor. It was from Ryan. And what he wrote in that letter explained something about his mother that none of us had known for 15 years. I opened Ryan's letter that night. It wasn't long, but I read it 3 times. The first line said, "I need you to know that my mother didn't start this because of you." I kept reading. Ryan explained that when he was a kid, his mother had become convinced that everyone was against her. It started with small things. A disagreement with a coworker, an argument with a neighbor, a problem with his father's family. Every time something went wrong, she found someone to blame. And once she decided someone was against her, there was no convincing her otherwise. Then he told me something I never knew. His father hadn't actually left because he'd fallen out of love with her. He'd left because he was exhausted. He'd spent years trying to convince Linda to stop fighting with everyone around her. He'd asked her to get help. He'd asked her to stop contacting neighbors. He'd asked her to stop making complaints over things that didn't matter. She refused. Eventually, he left. But Linda told Ryan a completely different story. She told him his father had abandoned them, that he'd chosen other people over his family, that he was cruel. Ryan believed her, until he found an old box in his father's house. Inside were copies of letters, emails, and recordings. His father had kept everything, not to hurt Linda. He'd kept it because he knew one day Ryan might need to know the truth. Ryan wrote that he had listened to some of those recordings after moving out, and one of them involved us. It was from 15 years earlier. The first year Linda had started complaining about our house. I'd completely forgotten the incident. Apparently she'd called her husband after our first council complaint. She'd told him we were dangerous people. Her husband had asked her what we'd actually done. She couldn't give him an answer. She just kept saying, "They're disrespectful." He asked, "Did they threaten you?" "No." "Did they damage anything?" "No." "Then what did they do?" There was a long silence. Then Linda said, "They don't respect my boundaries." Her husband asked what boundary we'd crossed. She couldn't explain that either. That recording changed the way I remembered those first few years. At the time, I'd thought she was simply difficult. But she'd already decided we were bad people. Everything afterward had been interpreted through that belief. If our dog barked, it was deliberate. If our children played outside, they were disturbing her. If we had friends over, we were disrespecting her. If we ignored her, we were apparently provoking her. There was no version of our behavior that could satisfy her. Because the problem wasn't actually what we were doing. She had already made up her mind about us. Ryan's letter ended with something I didn't expect. He said, "I'm sorry I didn't stand up to her sooner." I sat there for a long time after reading that. My wife read the letter too. She started crying. Not because of Linda. Because of Ryan. We'd spent 15 years being angry at his mother. We'd never really thought about what it was like to grow up beside her, to hear her talk about us, to believe her, to eventually realize that your own mother had lied to you for years. A week later, Ryan came over. He sat in our garden. The same garden Linda had complained about for 15 years. He laughed when he realized it. She really hated this place. I smiled. Apparently. He looked around, then said, "You know she blamed you for me leaving?" "I know. She said you turned me against her." I shook my head. "I didn't." "I know." He looked down. "I left because I finally realized I was allowed to have my own life." That was the moment I stopped thinking about Linda as our enemy. She had been a miserable person who made other people miserable. But she was also someone who had managed to destroy almost every relationship around her. Her marriage, her friendships, her relationship with her son, and eventually her home. Not because we took any of those things from her, because she kept pushing people away until there was nobody left to blame. A few months later, I heard she'd moved to another town. I don't know where. I don't want to know. Ryan still occasionally comes over. We're friends now, which is strange when I think about it. 15 years ago, I would have never imagined that the kid next door would eventually become one of the people I trusted most. Our families had been living next to each other for years, and all that time his mother had been telling him we were the problem. Eventually, he saw the truth for himself. The house next door was sold. A young couple moved in. The first weekend they were there, the man came over. He introduced himself. Then he said, "Sorry if we're noisy, we're still unpacking." I laughed. "Don't worry about it." He smiled. "Your old neighbor was apparently pretty strict." I looked at the empty house next door. Then back at him. "You have no idea." He laughed. I didn't tell him the whole story. I didn't need to. That chapter was over. 15 years of complaints, arguments, accusations, and cameras pointed at our windows. Gone. And the funny thing is, we didn't destroy Linda's life. We didn't take her house. We didn't turn her son against her. We didn't force her to leave. We simply stopped letting her control us. The rest happened because of her own choices. That's probably the strangest lesson I've taken from all of it. Sometimes you spend years fighting someone because you think they're trying to destroy your life. Then one day you realize they were destroying their own life the entire time. You were just standing close enough to get hit by the fallout.